So nobody really puts their phone down anymore. And I think it's a shame. At some point, we've started to just update each other and stop talking. But before I get into this piece here, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Brian. I make conversation card games that get people talking, laughing, and enjoying each other. So by the end of this video, I'll give you 2 tips to remember that will trigger you back to talking more than you text. But how do we even get here, right? Like how do we get to the point of everybody's just updating each other, nobody is actually talking, nobody's having real conversations anymore. I would say, of course, outside of the internet and all that stuff, we've become very transactional. We've gotten to the age where because of convenience and because of the art of transaction and the innovation around transactions, that has started to bleed over into our conversations. And so now our conversations are starting to look like transactions. And we've always had the typical transaction. How's your day? Fine. The status reports and not connection. But we have to remember that that part of a conversation is just exchanging info. We used to have a space where parents or people would intentionally try to pull more out of you. And now, for some reason, we're all in a space where the exchange of info is normal. And typically, that used to be the beginning of a conversation. So we have to go back and remember that these surface level talks and tidbits and sound bites that we're saying aren't really a conversation. And once you start to remember that, you'll continue through the conversation or you'll get used to pushing through to the next question or to the next thought that leads to the next question so that you won't just land on okay and move on, right? Because that is conversation. If you have it and call it that, that is a conversation that will lead you to I could just text because this is how my conversations go. You got to remember that's just exchanging info. That's like phase 1, step 1 of a conversation. You have to push through. Don't let that become your normal because a status report is not connection. You know what I mean? And also, screens really do play a role. I know we always hear about social media and how it's impacted everybody's mental health, etc. But we were already drifting. So if you imagine yourself as you get older, as you live your life, as you evolve, as you iterate, you become busy. Or there's different seasons where you're busy. There's different seasons where you're a homebody or you're more tired or less energetic or more energetic. And you eventually get to certain spaces in life. I think that I've heard this from multiple people, especially once they get past 26, 27. I feel like a lot of people, once they're getting to 30 and on, I keep hearing that they don't want anything to seem too deep, right? They're really into I need to focus on my career or my trajectory or my success. And as you do that, you become more introverted or your surroundings become very focused on whatever that goal is if you have one. If you don't have one, the surroundings still become smaller and then it's just you're not shooting for anything or landing towards anything, but it's still directionally correct because you're just deciding where you're going and you've committed to that, if that makes any sense to you. But that iteration, that evolving as a person, that getting older, your college friends, your high school friends, all these people tend to fall off and your peer group gets smaller. And so as you continue to have less people to talk to, and as you get busy and your schedules don't align, you've now trained yourself to stay shallow just for the sake of being able to participate in connection but not be serious about it, right? So it's very easy to participate but not really to progress. And that's the tricky part where again comfort sits in. Same thing with as I was talking about earlier where you get used to just exchanging info. The next thing is because as your environment changes, you tend to just want to check in. Maybe you're too tired to talk. Maybe you're glad that the conversation ended early. Maybe you're glad that, hey, at least I got to reach out and I left a message or something, but they didn't call you back because you didn't have it in you to really commit to a conversation at the time. So those two things, I want you to remember that these were already happening long before any algorithm took your attention, right? You were already getting busy, getting older, your peer group getting smaller, and you were already getting accustomed to exchanging info and status reports. So, those two things, although they overlap, are two very important things that start to lead you down that comfort of just surface level conversations because they're one and the same, but they're actually two different things. And then I would say that nobody really taught us to have better conversations or ask better questions. So now that you're not in an environment where the conversations are forced, you kind of get stuck, right? So think about it. School didn't teach us. Most parents didn't teach us. So you default to what's safe. And if you're not at work where it's a team building environment or a team building event, or if you're not in happy hour or you're not in a dating situation, you're not really forced to get accustomed to learn how to ask better questions or to have better conversations. So now you've got these stacks of many minute things that don't seem like a big deal, but on top of each other, that becomes your safety and your normal. All of these three different things. I said all of these, but these three different things are subtle. So you have to be careful. But once they stack up, they become very big things. And this is how you start to just meme your way through conversations or like your way through conversations or thumbs up and ha 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 through conversations because you're getting used to exchanging info. And then once you get used to exchanging info, then your busyness keeps you from committing to asking questions or continuing deeper down a conversation progression. And now you're just in these quick back and forths as well. So those two things happen. And then there's no real environment like school or college or a team building event for work or professionals where you are forced to be close up on somebody and get to know them. Right. So all that starts to happen as you become adult. And then you're stuck and you don't really notice the distance until you need someone. And so what you have to remember is those three things lead to a big thing, which is, oh no, man, I'm having some car trouble. Who do I call? I got 10,000 followers, 5,000 followers. I have 200 people in my phone. Who do I call? You see, that cost is quiet. The cost is very quiet, and you don't realize it until you actually need someone and you realize you don't know them anymore, or they don't know you because you haven't been keeping up with the idea of conversation. Conversation is what is really your bridge to relationships. And so, yeah, the cost is quiet. When you really need somebody, when you need a person, when it goes beyond a chat bot or a problem that you're solving for anything in your life, but you actually need a person who can either pick you up or take you somewhere, or you've injured yourself, or you have a question about some phase of life you're interested in. Maybe you're looking at buying a house, or maybe you're looking at investing in a small business, or maybe you're trying to learn where to put your money now that you're making money. Once you really look up and say, I have problems that are beyond me, and you jump on the internet, but the internet has a bunch of trash, and so you're tired of sifting through that, and you really want to talk to somebody, you realize you don't know people. They're just in your phone. They're just on your social media. And it's not until that quiet cost adds up that you actually notice the distance. And the distance is always farther than you think. So it's important. You have to push yourself to be vulnerable and courageous because you don't have to be vulnerable 24/7 or courageous 24/7. You just need one more real moment more often than you currently have. You just need one extra question during a conversation. You just need a layer to the surface level conversation that someone had. You just need to go from at least surface level to small talk. You just need to go from hi or I'm fine to what actually happened during the day. That's it. Like the bar is low, but the reward is like super high. You know what I mean? Um, so think about this. It's not hard, but it is hard. And I say that because everybody knows what to do. Everybody sees and feels the lack in their conversations, but rarely do we do anything about it. And so I want you to remember these two things because these two tips will actually help you to say, all right, let me try to talk to this person before I text this person. Or let me try to call this person before I text this person. Let me try to meet up with this person before I text this person. And be clear, I'm not trying to get rid of text. I just want you to get into the mode of talking. Voice, say something, hear, respond, all that. So remember, talking, number one, tip number one, talking is supposed to be fun. I'm not saying that all conversations are fun because there are some sad conversations and some deep conversations. But overall, most of your conversations are supposed to be fun, not deep, not healing, just fun, not sad, not heavy, just fun. And I want people to beware of these heavy conversations because if you always feel like you're always having a heavy conversation with somebody, it could be them or it could be you. Because here's the thing, you may not be doing enough to give them the opportunity to open their eyes that they can have other conversations with you. You may seem like the perfect person based on your conversations and energy to word vomit on based on whatever hardship I have going on in my life. And sometimes that's a normal for people because if you don't get to talk to people often, you kind of do want to update them on everything, whether good or bad. But if you're somebody who gets used to talking and talking is supposed to be fun, you'll learn how to navigate those conversations. And then when people leave your conversations, they will feel better. They will feel happier. They will feel like you didn't just leave them on the cliff being sad by themselves, right? So remember, talking is supposed to be fun. You got to say it out loud to yourself sometimes just to remember it. If you're listening to something and the conversation seems heavy and sad, that's okay. But, you know, keep keep a rubric in your head because there are parts of your conversations, there are times where your conversations should be fun. Most of the time, there's a season where there will be conversations that are sad or heavy. Serious things do happen throughout life, but they won't always be like that. There will be way more fun conversations than not. So don't forget that because conversation should feel good with no agenda. And then number two, tip number two, the phone is not the enemy. Habit is. I know I said that everybody just looks at their phone a lot more now and they don't talk. It is a shame, but it's not the phone that is the enemy. Your habit is. I'll be clear. I'm not anti-technology. Clearly, you know what I mean. I'm using video and camera to talk to you now. I'm just pro-human. So I'm not anti-technology. I'm just pro-human. When people reach for their phone, typically now it's because it's easy. We all do it. We get into a room full of people, whether you know them or not. Sometimes you just reach for your phone. Conversations is going south or slowing down. You reach for your phone. You're at dinner, you reach for your phone. You're watching TV, you reach for your phone and watch social media while watching TV. We're just so in the habit of always reaching for our phone because it's easy and familiar. You have to start rewriting that story and make conversations as easy and familiar as it is to reach for your phone. So, those two tips, if you remember that, they should help you at least slow down on just the pivot to the natural inclination to let me just text this person or let me meme them a response or let me just ha 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 or let me just float on social media. You should actually get into the mindset of talking is my first point of communication and my first way of conversation. And then after that, of course, I mean, texting, so there's busyness, there's you're at work or you don't have time to have a real conversation all the time, but the opportunities you do have the conversation. And those are what I'm specifically talking about. The opportunities where you actually have a chance to pick up the phone and call somebody, do it. And if they don't answer, then maybe you start texting. But we got to start using our voice more than our fingers. All right. So tell me in the comments what conversation that you keep meaning to have, but you haven't had yet. Leave a comment and let me know. And if you have some resistance about having the conversation, let me know that too, because then we could talk about how to have certain types of conversations. I'd love to help anybody out to make talking fun, get people laughing and enjoying each other again. All right. Peace.